I love my boyfriend. I would do anything for him. And I have for 2 years. We moved in with each other very early into our relationship. We've had our ups and downs, and I've supported us until now. I recently went through a rough time. I had been in and out of doctor's offices, scheduling session after session of therapy, which put me out of work and resulted in me having to throw in the fantasy towel and move back home with my parents. Now I'm forced to see my relationship for what it really was. A 22-year-old woman taking care of a 22-year-old boy when she didn't have to. This all came about over a phone call where he told me flat out he doesn't want to work. And I had to stop and ask myself if this is what I am willing to put myself through for the rest of my life. I spent endless days going into work for hours while he stayed at home playing video games. In exchange, he kind of cleaned the room. His mother also lived with us. So, to keep me from having to interact with her, he would bring me things from outside of the room. All in all, the situation was that I would banish myself to my bedroom and only come out to shower, use the restroom, and work. I was so caught up in the puppy love and the fun conversations and always having a friend there that I didn't realize my mental health was hitting an all-time low. I started having panic attacks at work because I was struggling trying to make ends meet. Among other problems that I don't want to get into, it'll kind of give me away. Still, I couldn't find the problem. I ended up out of work and the financial stress got worse. I finally decided it was time for me to cut my losses and move back home. I wouldn't have to hide from his mom anymore. I wouldn't have to pay the rent for us both. I wouldn't have to feed us. I wouldn't have to give up my car. It just seemed like the better deal. Part of the deal when I left was that he was going to get a job and save money. He was going to establish himself so that I wouldn't have to do all of that again, should I return. Now I am realizing I probably should never go back. He complained about not having money, and in the same breath said he never wants to work. I told him that it sounds like, because it's literally what he said, if he has it his way, I will forever be working and the only income in our home. He said he didn't like the idea of having to work for someone else, that he only ever wanted to invest in his dreams. He wants to make music. I support those dreams. I once had those dreams. But at some point, and I did say this to him, I gave up on those dreams because they weren't realistic anymore, and I found interests that put money in my pocket in different ways. He still has yet to do that. I even told him that he doesn't have to give up on his dream to work. He says he'll never have enough time to focus on music if he works. I say that if it means that much to him, he'll find the time. He tells me to give him an example of someone I know who does it. I can't, obviously, but I know that doesn't mean it's impossible. At the end of the day, it comes down to if you want to, you'll figure it out. Much like if you wanted to be my teammate, you'd figure out how to contribute. You already told me love isn't enough to make you give up on your dream, so fine. It sounds like I need to just leave you alone. I don't want to spend the rest of my life breaking my back for a man who won't do the same for me and can't even recognize why that would make me feel so bad. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's not as black and white as feeling unappreciated. If I'm being honest, when I was still living with him, I never felt unappreciated, but I was overwhelmed. I was carrying the needs of 2 people, sometimes more than 2, and on a salary that was barely enough for 1. He would make sure he had a plate prepared for me when I got home some days. He would massage my feet. He would dote on me. He was the one who was there for me when I was put on leave because I wasn't functioning at work. But when all of that was over, I had the financial phantom hanging over my head to remind me that I barely had enough to pay the rent that month, or that I had to choose between people having access to me or putting gas in my car. I guess I'm realizing I've been caught in a cycle. I'm down because he won't help me financially, but I feel better because he's there to make me forget. Comment 2. With 100% zero judgment, as I have had a lot of trouble dealing with this as well, I think you should Google the definition of codependency and listen to some professionals on YouTube describe what it is and how to cope with it. It sounds like you are giving someone the benefit of the doubt out of the kindness of your heart, and it's admirable. but it's never going to help him because he won't take advantage of any opportunities if he can take advantage of you or anyone who enables him. He's already shown that over the past 2 years. He will need to be completely cut off from that support before he figures out how to rely on himself. It will hurt to see him learn to walk, but it's for the best for both of you if you refuse to accept this behavior from him. Now, for the update. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of feeling myself after that whole ordeal with my ex. I thought I was ready to put it all behind me and just live my life, you know? But then my mom had to come over with her whole passive-aggressive, let's have dinner vibe, and I got sucked back into his drama. So about 3 weeks after the breakup, I get this call from my mom, asking if I could come over for dinner. She sounded all serious and wanted to discuss something important. I felt kinda obligated to go since it's not like she calls me over for dinner every week. I get to their house, and my dad, who's usually all about grilling burgers, had set up this fancy dinner with candles and my favorite meal. Like, who even does that on a random Wednesday? So I'm sitting there, just trying to eat my pasta and not think about my ex when my parents sit me down. That's when my mom drops the news. Apparently, my ex had been reaching out to them. She said he was all upset, claiming I left him in a tough spot without support. I'm like, really? This guy again? So my dad chimes in, saying he got some message from my ex asking for another chance to talk. I'm like, what did you even say to him? And they just shrug it off, saying they were just being polite. Okay, cool, but can we not be polite to the guy who made my life hell for 2 years? After dinner, my mom suggests I should consider talking to him. She insists it might help me find closure. Closure. My A. I don't need closure. I need a restraining order. A few days later, I get a text from my ex asking if we could meet up at this local diner. I thought about it for a second, then figured what the hell. So I show up at the diner, and he's already sitting in a booth, looking all nervous. I had to try really hard not to roll my eyes at the sight of him. He immediately starts going on about how he's been working on his music and how he's finally ready to contribute. I'm like, oh really? Because last I checked, your idea of contributing was playing Fortnite for 6 hours straight. So he goes on saying he had been looking for jobs but was only getting rejections. I'm thinking, okay, but what kind of jobs? And then he tells me he's been applying to music-related positions instead of regular jobs. Like, dude, those jobs wouldn't even pay for my coffee, let alone rent. He insists it's his passion, and I'm just like, yeah, well, my passion doesn't pay the bills either. Mid-conversation, he pulls out this song he had written about our breakup and starts playing it for me like it's some sort of proposal or something. I don't even know if I should laugh or cry at this point. After he finishes, I just tell him straight up, I don't want to hear songs about our relationship anymore, and he gets all defensive, saying I don't understand his art or the struggles he faces. I'm like, oh please, you're not Van Gogh, you're just a guy trying to be a rock star. At this point, I'm ready to leave, but he grabs my wrist, begging me to stay and listen. Like, hello? This isn't some rom-com movie where the girl stays for the big confession. I shook him off and left. Back at home, I made the decision to move on for good. I posted this story on social media about focusing on my own goals. It wasn't even that deep, but I just wanted to put it out there that I was done with his nonsense. Then, of course, my ex saw the post and sent me a series of angry messages saying I was abandoning him. I just ignored all of it because I knew he was trying to manipulate me again. A week later, I went to this family friend's birthday party. I wasn't really in the mood for a party, but free food and cake? Yes, please. So I'm at the party, minding my own business, when I unexpectedly run into my ex. Of course, he's there with a new girl who looked way too young for him. I overheard them talking about how he was over me and ready for new beginnings. I almost choked on my punch. I spent the rest of the night chatting with friends and just having a good time. My ex approaches me at one point, trying to act all casual, but I could see the tension in his demeanor. I laughed and pointed out how he was with someone new and wished him luck. You should have seen the look on his face. I could tell he wasn't too happy. As I walked away, I heard him telling the new girl how he didn't care about me anymore. Please. A few days later, my parents invited me over again, wanting updates on my life. I shared everything that had happened, and they were actually supportive. My mom suggested I treat myself to something nice, so I bought a new outfit. I wore it to a local gig where I met someone who actually shared my interests. We exchanged numbers, and it felt kind of nice, not gonna lie. And that's my life update. I'm feeling empowered, knowing I had taken control of my life. Am I the idiot for feeling manipulated by my girlfriend and wanting answers? My girlfriend, who is 24 years old, and I, who am 25 years old, have been together for about 4 years. We aren't really together now, but it's complicated, and I'll explain that in another post. Over the past few months, I've realized certain things she says and does that make me feel like I'm being manipulated or controlled. She insists that is not the case, so I think maybe it's just me. When we get into an argument because I'm upset about something, she flips it and makes it about herself. Then when I try to go back to address my feelings, she says I'm flipping it on her to make it seem like everything is her fault. But the reason we got into an argument in the first place was because of an issue I brought up. Yesterday, we had a great day until later in the night. My friend called and we had a short conversation. It was about his business and the economy, and we were asking each other how things have been. After the conversation, she was being distant. I was talking to her and she was ignoring me. I was so confused because before the call, she was fine. I got upset because I was being ignored. I told her that she was being rude, and then she said I was being rude. I asked her how, and she didn't say anything. I went to bed, and she came in talking about me talking to my friend, but not to her. I almost never talk to any of my friends or go out, mainly because I work a lot. Before the call, we were laughing, talking, and went out earlier for a few hours. Right before the call, she was watching TV, and I was on my computer. This is normal for us on late Sundays. Going back to the argument, I asked her if she was mad that I was on the phone with my friend, and she said that wasn't it at all, which was confusing because she just mentioned me being on the phone with my friend and seemed angry about it. But she said she doesn't like how I'm rude and started screaming, keeping in mind it was about 10 p.m. and we live in an apartment. I told her to quiet down. I was so confused. I was just quiet and went to sleep while this was going on, and she continued her rant. This is what I normally do, or I'll isolate myself. It's a different argument, but the same behavior. When I am upset about something, she ignores my feelings and then turns it on me. But when I ask her what I did, she doesn't have an answer. Then, minutes later, she has different reasons that don't seem to add up to me. Then it becomes about what I've done to her. This almost always results in her screaming and yelling. She may even hit walls and things. I can't help but feel like I'm being manipulated to believe I'm the problem and I've done something wrong. I'm starting to believe maybe I'm doing things wrong and just don't see or understand what I've done. I also think she is very controlling and jealous. Usually, I am quick to let things go and try to mend things after a day. She will remain upset for a few hours to another day, then apologize and say she had time to think about things and realizes she is wrong. She has admitted she doesn't take accountability or criticism well. I'm tired of this cycle. It's exhausting, but I'm not sure if I'm the problem or if I'm being manipulated. If I'm the problem, how do I fix this? Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post did not have any comments. Now for the update. A few days after the last fight, my girlfriend and I went to a family barbecue at my parents'. I know, super fun, right? Just what we needed. The atmosphere was pretty rough. I was still feeling the weight of everything that had happened, and my girlfriend was acting like a total stranger. Not the best combo for a family gathering. My parents invited my younger sister, Mia, and her boyfriend Tom. My older brother, Jake, and his wife, Rachel, were there too. They just announced they were expecting their first kid, so that was a thing. And of course, everyone was happy and smiling and all that. Meanwhile, I'm just trying not to throw up from all the tension. My girlfriend was being all distant again, laughing a bit too loud at Jake's jokes while ignoring me completely. Like, come on, it's my family too. I tried to engage her by asking if she wanted to help me with the grill, but she just brushed me off, saying she was busy talking to Rachel. Yeah, real busy. Not that busy that she couldn't give me a smile, though. Then, out of nowhere, my dad made some comment about how great it is to see everyone happy. That just led me to jokingly say, "Yeah, I guess that makes me the odd one out." Didn't think it would lead to that. My girlfriend snapped at me, saying I was being dramatic and ruining the mood. Sorry for ruining the mood, I guess. After a while, she excused herself to take a phone call, and I felt even more isolated. She was talking animatedly, saying something about needing to figure things out. I heard her mention she didn't want to bring it up now, and I just couldn't help but feel super curious. I wanted to know what was going on, but I didn't want to confront her in front of the family. Later at dinner, she started to bring up the phone call again, saying I didn't care about her feelings. I tried to explain that I was just trying to make things better, but she interrupted me, saying I always turned things around on her. I mean, maybe I was trying to figure out what was going on. After dinner, I stepped outside for some fresh air, trying to cool down from the drama of it all. While I was out there, I overheard my girlfriend on another call, and she sounded really upset. She was mentioning a friend in a tone I hadn't heard before, and it just made my stomach drop. When she came outside, I asked her who she was talking to, and she snapped that it was none of my business. Wow, okay then. I went back inside, feeling even more isolated, and my family was still enjoying their time. I decided to take a walk around the block to clear my head. When I got back, my girlfriend was gone, and my family was looking for her. They casually mentioned she left in a hurry, and I felt this knot in my stomach. I found my girlfriend sitting in her car, looking really upset. I knocked on the window, and she refused to roll it down, saying she needed space. So I stepped back, feeling a mix of frustration and helplessness, and returned to the house. My family asked if everything was okay, but I just made a vague comment about needing to talk later. The next day, I got a text from her saying we needed to have a serious talk soon. She wasn't wasting any time, was she? We finally met at a local diner, and she just sat there quietly, avoiding eye contact. It was like I was sitting across from a ghost. She brought up the phone call again, saying it was important, but she didn't elaborate. The conversation turned into another argument, with her saying I never listened to her. We left the diner without any resolution, feeling just as frustrated as when we walked in. At home, I found her packing some things into a bag. I asked her what she was doing, and she said she needed to think and might stay with a friend for a while. She left without saying where she was going, and I just decided to stay home. Edit. She texted later, saying she needed space to think things through. She mentioned feeling suffocated, and her friend was just a temporary place. We agreed to give each other some time, but I felt uneasy. I reached out to her friend to know she was safe, but didn't get much info. Am I the idiot for kicking out my best friend after finding out she's still talking to her ex? I've known my friend Anna for almost 20 years now. She's pretty much the only real friend I have. I have some other acquaintances, but she's the only one I talk to about personal stuff. We've been very close in our 20s, but drifted apart a little after she married her husband 9 years ago. About a month ago, she called me in the evening asking to stay at my place for a few days. I said sure. I have a spare room, and she came over a few hours later. She was very distressed and told me that she's getting a divorce and she needed some space away from her husband after they had a big argument. I don't want to go into too much detail about her personal affairs here, but it boils down to being unable to have children and some drama with their parents. We ended up talking throughout the entire night. She told me how she's been depressed for a while, how she's been disillusioned with her marriage, how she hates her job and her day-to-day life. This wasn't entirely new information. We've been in contact, and I knew she's been unhappy, but I didn't realize how bad everything really was. I told her about how I dealt with my own depression after losing my fiancé, about therapy and psychiatry. She was really nervous and scared about going to a mental health clinic, so I just gave her a summary of how my own treatment went. We've spent a lot of time together over the next few days, catching up, reminiscing, and just chatting. After a week, she asked me if she could stay longer until she could find her own place. I didn't really mind. She's a pretty considerate roommate, and I really enjoyed having her around and spending more time with her again. Over the past few weeks, she's been getting really, clingy? I'm not sure that's the right word since it seems to be negative, and I don't mean it like that. She would hug me whenever she came back from work, make sure we ate together when possible, invite me or join me to watch things, and we even went out a few times, which was a bit unusual for me, but I ended up having a good time. I was starting to feel courted, for lack of a better word. Whenever she was home, we'd end up spending most of our time together, and it was starting to get more and more flirty and intimate. Last night, she asked me if she could move in long term, splitting household expenses and chores and so on. I wasn't really thinking and sort of reflexively said that I'd love that. She really lit up, smiled, and kissed me on the lips. Just to add, since I got this question on another forum, I mean an actual romantic kiss, not a peck on the lips. I was slightly taken aback and didn't really know what to say, so we wished each other goodnight, after which we kissed again before she went to bed. I'm really conflicted. On one hand, I feel like I'm taking advantage of a vulnerable person who's just latching on to me because I was nice to her. On the other hand, I can't help thinking how this could be some sort of manipulation on her part. This maybe sounds paranoid, but I've had some bad experiences with a partner that left me wary. On the third hand, my friend never gave any indication of being bisexual before, but she was together with her soon-to-be ex-husband for almost as long as I've known her, and this whole thing feels, real. I've been in relationships before where my partner was just looking to have a rebound as some sort of revenge on her boyfriend before going back to him. And this doesn't feel like that at all. On the fourth hand, even if she is looking for something more, I'm not sure if I'm right for that. She's a really wonderful and genuine person, and I'm, emotionally stunted and broken, so she could probably do a lot better. And the only reason we ended up here is that I happened to be there during a moment of weakness by some random chance. I feel really stupid now for immediately agreeing to her moving in. Not because I don't want her around, I very much do. These past weeks were some of the best I've had over the last few years, but because I feel like this relationship is starting from a really unhealthy place, I can't help but think she's only doing this to make me like her more, and I'm being manipulative for going along with it. I don't really have anyone to talk to about this. Normally, she would be the one I'd go to, but I'm really not sure what to say. I feel like I'm completely out of practice with all this emotional stuff, and I'm really scared of losing one of the only people in my life I care about if I end up saying something insensitive or stupid. I can't bring myself to ask her to move out, especially after accepting her offer, and I don't know how to even start the conversation. "Oh, honey, you're just confused about your feelings," is like the most obnoxious and condescending phrase ever. And I feel disgusting even hinting at that. Is there any way to make this mess actually work? If not, is there any way this doesn't result in me losing someone I deeply care about forever? Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post didn't have any comments. Now for the update. My friend moved in with me after her divorce, and I just found out she's been seeing her ex. I'm done. A couple weeks passed since Anna moved in. Honestly, everything felt more complicated than before. I thought maybe this would help us work out our feelings, but not. No idiots here. Didn't happen. Anna's divorce finalized during that time, and she seemed more distant, like she was always on her phone, scrolling and replying to messages. I tried not to be too nosy, but I couldn't help but notice how anxious she got whenever her phone rang. She'd pick up, listen for a second, and then hang up quickly. I thought it might be something work-related or maybe her ex-husband. I didn't want to pry. One evening, I was in the kitchen making some food, and I heard her talking quietly in the other room. I couldn't make out the words, but I recognized a man's voice. It was familiar, but I couldn't place it. My curiosity got the better of me, so I decided to ask her about her day when she came into the kitchen. I kept it casual, like, "Hey, how was your day?" She seemed a bit surprised and mentioned she met a friend but was evasive about who it was. I didn't want to push it, so I dropped it for the time being. But honestly, I was kinda on high alert. I decided to check her social media for any clues about who this friend was, but I found nothing. Just the usual stuff about her divorce and some inspirational quotes. A few days later, my family's dinner was coming up, and I invited Anna to join us. I thought it would be a good way for her to meet my family and feel more at home. She agreed, but I could see a hint of anxiety on her face. At the dinner, Anna seemed distracted. She was scrolling through her phone at the table instead of engaging in conversation. My younger sibling, Sam, noticed and jokingly asked if she was addicted to her phone. The tension broke a little, and Anna laughed, but she quickly put her phone down. I saw her glance nervously at me, which made me feel uneasy. During dinner, the conversation shifted to family updates. My brother shared news about his promotion, and out of nowhere, Anna excused herself, saying she needed to take a call outside. I felt this knot in my stomach. I didn't want to seem overprotective or anything, but I followed her outside. I overheard her on the phone, and it was her ex-husband. My heart sunk. The tone of her voice was serious, and I caught snippets about wanting things to be back to normal. I felt so betrayed. I went back inside, trying to act like everything was cool, but my parents noticed something was off. They asked if everything was all right, and I just brushed it off, saying I was tired. Tension lingered at the table, though. After dinner, Anna came back in, and I confronted her about the call. She claimed it was just closure for her divorce, but I wasn't convinced. I felt like she was trying to fool me. My brother invited everyone to a weekend barbecue, and Anna agreed to come. I had this gut feeling that something was off. At the barbecue, Anna kept texting and stepping away from the group. It raised even more suspicion. I caught her laughing with someone on the phone while we were all trying to enjoy the food. It felt like a slap in the face. That's when I decided I needed to dig deeper. I had to find out if her ex-husband was involved in her life again. I went through her stuff while she was at work and found a bunch of messages between them. She had been secretly meeting him for coffee. I was so mad, but also heartbroken. I just wanted to help her, and now this? I invited Anna to a private dinner at a nearby restaurant, hoping it would give us a chance to talk. During dinner, I confronted her with the evidence I found. I showed her the messages, and at first, she denied it, but I pressed her hard. I was determined to get the truth out of her. My frustration peaked, and I knew I had to take a different approach. I suggested we play a game of truth or dare to lighten the mood, but honestly, the tension was still there. Instead of playing a game, I dared Anna to call her ex right then and there. She hesitated, but I pushed her. She eventually called him, putting me on the spot. After the call, I told Anna we couldn't continue living together. I just didn't want to live with someone who's still seeing their ex. She looked shocked. I packed her stuff and got ready to deal with the fallout of our decision. Things are still complicated, though. We have some shared responsibilities like bills and the apartment lease, and I just don't know how to handle that while dealing with this mess. I'm also worried about how Anna will react to us having to figure that stuff out. If there's any big updates, I'll let you guys know. Edit. For everyone asking about our living situation, Anna and I are on the lease together, but we plan to sublet her room to someone new. It's taking time since we need to find someone we can trust with our home. We're still working on shared bills, but it's awkward. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.